All right. Good. So to start, shall we start with a roll call?
Yeah.
All right. I'll start with people that are here. So Armel.
Okay, good evening.
Good. Hello. Amir. Nice to see you.
Pleasure.
I literally just spoke with Andy, so I know he is going to dial in imminently. But Jonathan here, so we have quorum.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Approval of the consent calendar. Shall we take a quick look at that right now? Community Service Director, the Government Code.
I think it's just the minutes, so.
Okay. Would anybody like to review the minutes, or shall we just make a motion to approve them?
Were they sent? They were not sent with the
it's in the clicks are all inside the document now.
The link is in the
click
PDF.
on the blue link, it'll open up the document that goes with it.
I did not see that. Okay.
Here, let me send another link, Armel. That way you'll have it in the chat box.
Yes, I'll have them.
Okay, you're sending it, Franklin. Thank you.
Yeah.
Was it in your first email or in the second?
No, I sent a follow up with the full packet. So, and that's what it's just the revised document that has clickable links in it.
Franklin,
yeah, I saw all the links, but I did not see the minutes.
Did you get that up here? Did you?
I got it and I have it open right now. Actually, I was just wondering, are you able to enable chat so we could post it here in the chat? And
yeah, that's what I was going to try to do, but where's the chat thing?
Yeah, I don't see it visible, but also Franklin, can you check the waiting room? Andy said that he is now dialed in.
Oh yeah, Andy's. Let me move him over to the panel.
All right.
You know, this is the city clerk's account, and I don't see where they have disabled the chat. I don't even have the option on my side. That's not good. Okay.
We have Q&A. Is Q&A?
Yeah, and I don't think I could put anything in the Q&A. Let me see.
While you're looking for that, for the minutes, I'll note Andy Ravel has joined. Hello, Andy.
Andy.
I'm here. How are you guys?
Amir, do you also need to access those minutes?
I have everything. I've got all the links open.
Got them. Okay, so I must have missed them. My apologies.
Armel, I just emailed you the link until we figure out chat, so you can take a quick look at them. Would anybody like to spend time on previous minutes, or shall we, Armel, I'll give you a few minutes if you want to quickly scan them before we approve them from the previous meeting.
All right, just looking at them. Okay, I don't see anything of, okay. Go for it.
Okay. So
thank
do I
you.
hear a motion to approve them?
I move to approve them.
Okay, good. I'll second it. Okay, seconded. Okay, excellent. Public comment.
We need to make a roll call vote or a vote.
Oh, sorry. Okay. A vote to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so approved. All right. Are there public comment citizens that wish to have the floor?
No, there's nobody in attendance besides the board. So we have nobody in the waiting room.
Okay. Franklin, then to you for the director's oral report.
Oh, did the board not have no reports from the board members?
Oh, sorry. Let me open that up. For the board, Armel,
no
Andy.
report.
Yeah, I didn't have anything.
I don't have any items at this time.
Okay. So now it's my turn. So, okay, well, I want to welcome Amir. This is your first meeting. In July, we usually do go over the board training. I started doing the board training. It was to give everybody an in-depth look at what we're doing. So we'll go into that later in the agenda. Just for updates, so everybody got a copy of inside the, and I don't know if you got this, Armel, or not. So I can just send you it again.
I got everything else, was just the minutes I didn't see.
Okay, so the our circulation has gone down. We have fully reopened, well, not fully reopened. We've basically reopened City Hall's lobby now that the City Hall is reopened. So on the 2 days that we're currently open to the public, people can come in through the front door. And basically we're not capacity in the library anymore. So as many people can come in as they want it now. But the big thing is we don't have furniture, and right now we don't know when we'll put the furniture back in, probably in the fall. So there is no furniture for people to sit down. Little kids though have a couple seats to sit in, and people have, I mean, most of the kids sit on the floor anyway, so they've been coming in. So that's been good. We've had an uptick in the circulation, as you saw from the report. So some stuff has gone out. Our ebook circulation is one that has sort of gone down over last year, but it's still up 5% over the month before. Our total circulation is up 18%. And our loaned items is what have gone down. So we haven't been lending as much, only by 5 books, to other Link Plus libraries. So we've also begun working on preparing for RFID. The county has given the lion's share to MarinNet, so they are purchasing RFID tags, but we wanted to really start weeding the collection. So me and Teresa have begun weeding both the adults and the children's collection to make sure that we're not tagging material that hasn't left the building in a number of years. For the adult collection, we're doing 5 years for the adult nonfiction, 7 years for the fiction, and I don't know what the mark that Teresa had for hers. But this way we get stuff out of the building that hasn't really left the building in quite a while. This will make space for new items. And you know, if some of you have been here, you saw some of the shelves are pretty crammed, full. And we've been trying to avoid using the bottom shelves, which we've started doing in the fiction area. And it's just because a lot of senior citizens have issues getting down to the bottom shelving. I've had complaints about our hold shelves that are back where they used to be, because there's a huge chunk of it that is on the floor because the shelving, I mean, since we have so many things still put on hold, because 3 days of the week we are just doing curbside, the hold shelves have sort of overflowed what they used to have. So I've had complaints where people need help getting their books off the floor. But I keep reminding people that's what we're here for, that we're here to help you. So if you can't get down to get something, the staff will be more than willing to do that. We have 2 new library aides.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question on things that you're purging? What percentage of our total holdings are the 5 and 7 year kind of dormant that you're going to clear out?
Well, in certain collections, it's different. I know in the 900 collection, there were over 300 titles, but it doesn't look like they've weeded that part of the library collection in a long time. So I'm finding stuff that hasn't circulated since we converted from the card catalog to the current system. So that was in the early 2000s when they converted. So there's stuff that has just never left the building since that time has happened. So it's really just, you know, finding stuff that really nobody's reading. I don't know what the total percentage is. Usually it's like really a small percentage, because most of the lists I've run, it's only been like 20, 30 books. But the 900s have the 900s and the 800s have the largest amount that'll be weeded. And it's just because I think, like I was asking Teresa when the last time they weeded this part of the collection, and she said it had been a long time since anybody had done it. So I know there's certain parts that sort of get done more frequently, like the computer books, you know, who's using Windows XP and Vista. So we're getting rid of the books that don't really have any relevance anymore, that people are not using that stuff. But I'm not sure what the exact percentage is. But it's just certain parts have, you know, are going to be hit bigger because people really don't use those collections. So, but for the most part, like I said, it's just like maybe a few hundred books just in certain parts of the collection. I think right now the biggest list was from the 900s. And there's parts of the 900 collections, even though it hasn't circulated, we want to keep. So I just check it in and check it out again. So when we run the reports, it won't come out again. And that's mostly like California history, local history, books on Miwoks. I came across a couple of Miwok books that we have in our collection that hadn't been used in like 7 years. So we just wanted to make sure that they're still in our collection because that's part of local history too. So we're trying to make sure that those stay. But most of this stuff too also has other copies in the MarinNet system. So if somebody really wants to read something, it may come from another library, but it'd still be within what we consider our total collection. It's accessible, so.
Got it. What does 800 and 900 refer to?
The 800s are the literature and the 900s are the history.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I forget people don't know the Dewey system all that well. So yeah, those are the 800 collection covers most of all literature, and then the 900s covers all the world history through American history. So, and that's all the travel books too. That was one of the things I did the other day is I got rid of the travel books that were more than 5 years old. Because who wants a travel book for somewhere that, and especially now I was saying that, a lot of these travel books might all need to go because what happened during COVID, what got left, what got shut down. So we have ordered new travel books that are current, or at least current that they were published this year. Again, I still don't know what they're missing from the aftermath of the pandemic. But we'll start seeing those. But I know people are gearing up to travel and everybody wants a new travel book. So we'll have a few of them that some of the other MarinNet libraries don't have yet either. So
cool. Thank you.
I did have a question regarding circulation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that if we can go back to that briefly?
Yeah.
When I looked at the numbers, I was impressed by the difference between the number of kids' books that were borrowed and the number of adults books that were borrowed compared to the young adults books. I mean, we have over 2,400 of kids books being borrowed, over 2,500 adult books, and only 130 young adult books being borrowed. And I was wondering, is it because of our population? Is it because of access that young adults just don't come? Or is it because our inventory is not geared toward their taste?
I would say
and my last question is, how does it compare with other libraries? Because maybe it's just normal.
Well, no, I don't know how we compare to other libraries because I don't have access to their monthly statistics. I mean, I guess I could track it down somewhere, but I think it's a combo of all three things. A lot of teens, unless sometimes you're a real, because we have teen volunteers, I think we have 4 this summer that come in, and 2 of them aren't big readers. Like me and Teresa trying to get the teen volunteers to do book reviews. And right now, only one of them has done that, and that's Rain. And we just posted her Instagram on Saturday. So she has an Instagram book review. We have a lot of the bestsellers and the popular titles. So that it's not like we don't have the material. I think from the past too, that teens that have come here, if we didn't have it, they stopped coming. And I think some of the board members have kids that have come here who can't find something, and then they decide to get their parents to buy it, or they get it from Corte Madera. Corte Madera, I think we're getting a boon of more users from Corte Madera just because the library is closed still due to their construction issues. So we have an influx, but we haven't had a huge group of teens come in here like other libraries where I've worked at. But I think it's also, we're further away from the high school. We've only reopened a couple days a week. And I think but it's a combo of all those things. And there's some stuff that teens are reading that we just don't have. The teens that like to read a manga, we don't have any manga in our collection at all. So
is that, well, I just saw that it was, the numbers were so staggering in terms of difference, 130 versus 2,500 for other. I was just wondering, is it something we need to worry about? Is it something that's going to regulate? Well, I don't know. I wanted to hear your thoughts about it.
I just think trying to get, a bigger collection will have more kids come in, but we can't do that with the space that we have. Children are different too, because children come in with their parents, and they will take a bunch of books, where a teen will come in and they'll just pick up 1 or 2 books. And it depends on how much the teens are reading or how much free time they have. There's the combo, a mix of stuff too. I know when parents call up me and Teresa to do readers advisory for their kids, they get a bag worth of books. Where I've had, the middle graders and the middle schoolers and teens, when you're trying to give them multiple books, they're like, no, I don't want that one. I don't want that one. They really want something specific. And that's why I keep trying to remind Teresa too, that if the bad thing right now is that there isn't a big trend of what is super popular in teen literature. Not like there was a few years ago where they had series that were really, big hitters. Right now, we're sort of in that lull of what's the new exciting thing that teens are reading. And that hasn't popped up yet. There's some of it's the older stuff that has been popular, but there is nothing like Twilight or Hunger Games that are making kids beat down the door to get a book from us. So I think eventually with bigger space and a bigger collection, and I too think if we can get to the Rose Lane area, we'll have more teens coming through the door just because we're closer to school.
Franklin, could you also, to the best of your ability, put it in perspective? How much total volume is there that's classified, as young adult versus, kids versus adults, right? Because it's like a 15x difference, but is there a huge disparity of how many books total could be checked out by kids and adults versus YA?
Yeah, just because we have a really tiny collection. If you really think about how big the teen collection is compared to everything else, I think we take up maybe three ranges, and that's it. That's, and they're small ranges. It's behind the biographies and underneath the staircase. That's the entire teen collection. And it has to fit in that little space. And right now, even that is shared with the adult graphic novels. We put the graphic novels over there just because we knew that teens would pick up the adult graphic novels. The rest of the collection, there's much more space given to adult collection and the children's collection. And I think the children's collection could be even bigger than it is. But I think that there was a point in time where we were having more adult users use the library. So they sort of swayed it to be more heavy for adults. I think demographics in the town are starting to shift back, where we have more kids and families in town. So we would have to start shifting the collection growth back in that way. I know too, when they move stuff around too, Teresa said we lost some shelving in the children's area as well. So that shrunk that collection down as well.
Franklin, what's the demographic breakdown on the ebook consumption?
That I have to look the numbers up, but I think we've seen a growth in teen and children's book being checked out in the ebook, and that's why we know that it's a popular. But I think it's just our location it's location, and we're in a bad spot for teens. Unless you really want to come over, and I really don't even see that many kids from St. Patrick's yet coming in like they used to, because we did get more of those after school than we are right now. But we are really off the beaten path for the high schoolers. Even from the Catholic high school, which is over on Sir Francis Drake, we're pretty far away from the teens there, unless you live around the corner, which a couple of our teen volunteers do. Colby lives just around the corner. I think Reen lives right around the corner. So we're in a much more, and they've been coming here since they're little kids. So these kids really do like coming to the library. It's a combination of all those three elements, Armel, and that I think it adds to it. And then I think too, just like adults, if you go somewhere a few times and they don't have what you're looking for, when do you start going to the other libraries that do have it? So, and that's what I always try to make sure. If somebody wants something, we try to get it. And if we know it's popular, we try to make sure we have extra copies of it too.
Thank you.
Yeah, my family came in last week, and I think that the kids got like 25 books between the two of them. So I think it's a pretty good point. And they also had a super smooth experience. So it sounds like things are running pretty well. Just real-time example.
I love it. Franklin, one other question on the stats. The adult devices that kind of skyrocketed 8 to 38. What are those devices? Are those laptops?
Those are the Chromebooks and the hotspots. And because they go out as a pair as two, and actually they've been renewed a lot. So we have a couple of people who've been renewing them, and then they bring them back and they check them out again. So that's what the devices are. That's why it's sort of blown up, because they check out for a week and then they can be renewed for an additional week. So there are a couple of people in town that are using them very frequently.
That's great.
And that was also why that you in this board we have a revised of the policy, because we had somebody who came in from Santa Rosa wanting to borrow a laptop and a hotspot from us. And it's like, no. And I realized, we didn't have that written into our policy. So we need to make sure we wrote that into the policy. The programming, I'm still a little behind on. There's one more program that I'm trying to get settled, and it was one about forest fires, but I need to reschedule that one because I've fallen behind. So that will be one more added program to this month, hopefully at the end of the month. If I can.
To go back to the hotspot, the procedures, I did notice when I was reading them, the updated one, that it mentioned that one has to be have no fines pending, but we don't have fines. Do we?
No, what it is that some people do owe money for material that has not been returned. So, and right now our billing has skyrocketed because the MarinNet finally started sending out overdue notices. So people have been billed for material. So this was one thing you had brought up a few months ago, Armel. You were worried about people not returning material because there's no overdue charges. But if you don't return material, you still will be billed for not returning it. And so because we had stopped billing people and reminding them that they had material overdue when the pandemic started, a bulk of material billing went out in June. So there are some people who have books that now owe $300 or more, depending on what kind of books and how many books they had checked out. And I keep reminding people, once you turn it in, the bill goes away. So all we want is the material back. And I think right now that's happening across all MarinNet, because some people that I talk to frequently and we got books for them at curbside didn't return some of those books they had checked out months ago. But when they got that $300 bill, they're like, I'm going to bring my books back now. So for us, it's really just making sure the material comes back. And I think that's usually what will finally get someone to bring something back, is because they billed for an item. And I know the one patron I talked to, I think what it was is he just forgot he could use the return drops now that they're reopened. And he was really embarrassed, but he brought it all back and then he was able to check out. And I think that also happened with one other person. The MarinNet right now is working on lowering or bringing up the cap. I think right now the cap for blocking patrons from checking out is $25, but we're trying to get it up to $50. So it would be $50 before it blocked you for putting holes or checking out materials. So
that's good. Cool. Okay, well, thank you. All my questions are getting answered. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the reopening, the hiring is in, like I said, we have 2 new library aides that have started. So that is added to our staffing levels. Bobby, who was here for a long time, has decided to go on call. And so that was why we were able to hire a second library aide. The librarian position, we've made the offer. And so now we're waiting for the background check to go through. So hopefully by the end of August, I was going to say by the end of July, but we're already midway through July. Hopefully by the end of August, they'll be on board. They will be relocating from Southern California up to here. So I'm just hoping that nothing falls apart in the meantime. So, but so far, because the first candidate we made the offer to declined the offer. They had gotten another job at their system. So this is our second candidate. But all 3 of them are really good. So it was hard making a decision. But this one's going through. And so hopefully, knock on wood, everything runs smoothly. And by the end of August, we'll have a full as staff as we can have with our current budget.
Yeah,
so
that will be good. That will be helpful.
Will you share the candidate's name after they accept?
Yeah, well, once it goes through in the background check, we'll share the candidate's name. So probably at the next board meeting, once I know what the process is, because I don't like putting names in public record. So
I appreciate that. All right, great.
So that's really it for the my oral report at the moment. I'm sure I forgot something, but
I'll just call out that some of the programming in July looks really strong. Like Ron Rosano, he's amazing.
No, it's really awesome too, because he was at Richard Branson. He went to the launch site. So I'm really excited to hear him talk about that when he does that this month, because he was at the launch yesterday. So he was there in person at the actual launch and landing of Virgin Galactic's shuttle. So it's going to be really cool to hear what he has to say. And I had been pressing him to do this back in the spring, because we were talking about how private industry is really pushing the new space race. So that was what we're hoping that it's do a program. Now we're doing the program on it. So
Yep. Great. All right. So does that conclude your report?
Yeah, that concludes my oral report. So
all right. So in the new business items, board training, back to you.
So board training. So let me share my screen. So as you know, we put this on the on our calendar. I need to send you everybody the calendar again so we have it again. But I just wanted to make this an annual thing so we can go through everything that the library does. So this is the topics we're going to cover: the library's board's charge, the Brown Act, MarinNet, library budgets, and our support groups. So this is from the library boards. This is actually from the municipal code where it defines what the library board does. And you guys advised me. You recommend policy pertaining to the use of library facilities, library materials, and equipment, which you've done over the year with the hotspots and the Chromebooks and the revising of the policy, the behavioral policy last month. You'd also advise me regarding additional structural changes to the library, the building equipment. You review and make recommendations on annual budget, which we did at the mid-year and we did it back in March. And then you guys serve as the library's representatives at state and national meetings of the Library Board of Trustees. And you advise me on suggestions coming from citizens of Larkspur concerning the operations of the library. And this is why I always remind you guys, you are my voice to the community. So if you have questions or people ask you a question when you're out and about town and you're not sure, you can just refer them back to me. And then I know most all you guys are really good representatives of the library anyway, so you're always advocating for us. So you guys, the terms of office are for 4 years and they can be renewed. Usually that's Michelle had been on for 2 years, right? Or more than 2 years, I think. Or 2 terms, I think, more than 2 terms. And then Jeff is just, and I think you, Andy, have both just been reappointed to the board. And Amir, this is your first time on the board, so. And hopefully it'll be worth it. So usually in January, we'll have the elections of officer. Currently right now, Jeff is our chair and Jonathan is our vice chair, but you guys will nominate and rotate or do by tradition like they've been doing. But you guys will appoint who the chair of the trustees is and then the vice chair. So we do follow usually the Rosenberg's rules of order. So this is if you're not sure of how, like there's Robert's Rules of Orders and there's this one and there's a parliamentary one that I use in ALA. But this one is the one that we're using for the city of Larkspur. So all the commissions, boards, and even city council all rely on the Rosenberg's Rules of Order. And it's a simplified rules for medium and rules for decorum, making motion, withdrawing a motion, and for taking public comment. So this is how we run our meetings. And then the big thing to know is the Brown Act. This comes up a lot because this is what can get boards in trouble. The Brown Act is we have open meetings. We post our board agendas 72 hours prior to the meeting. Usually it's 24 hours for special meetings. And then if usually a cancellation. So for some reason, which I always worry about is not getting quorum at a board meeting, we would have to cancel the meeting, but that could happen the day of, or like the month I got sick. It'll happen right at the last minute. And then how do we comply? Our meeting as a legislative body must fully be open and accessible to the public. Anybody in the public does have access to the Zoom. Actually, a lot of people think that this has made our meetings a little more accessible for people who couldn't make it to the meeting times or couldn't get here if they have transportation issues. There's another can of worms of people who don't have internet access, which we know that happens, or people who just, they like to be here in person. So all boards must discuss and deliberate and act upon public business openly. So that means when we're here, we all have our meetings here open in the public. And then you guys review any policies and it's accessible to the public. So even after the meeting's done, we make sure that anything that was handed out to the board goes up onto the city's website. So everybody has access to all the board material. So pretty much anything so if say somebody came and did a presentation to us, we would get a copy of that presentation and add it to the board packet that's online. So what is a meeting? A meeting is the majority of the board members present at the same time and place to hear, discuss, or deliberate or take action on any government business. What is a legal meeting? Using the telephone, email, or another person or any other device by members of legislative bodies to discuss governmental business, triggers of Brown Act and open meeting requirements. So this is so if we all went to MAGs and we all started talking about city business and we didn't put out a notice, that would be an illegal meeting. So there's different types of illegal meetings. There's like, I think the serial meetings, like if I went to one of you and then I went to another one, and then to one of you individually talking about the same subject, that can be considered a serial meeting. And I've been in a place where one of my directors got in trouble for doing this, and we had to put a stop to it because it's an illegal act. So what's not a legal meeting is individual board members conferring to constituent staffs and consultants or a colleague. And then closed session discussions of confidential topics. We don't, as the library board, ever have closed meetings just because you guys are an advisory board. This is more for city council that has it. And I think that the Parks and Rec Commission could have a closed meeting just because they do public hearings on tree permits. So, but so far for the Parks and Rec Commission, we haven't had to have a closed meeting yet. So most of our meetings are always open. I don't see a reason why we would have a closed meeting. I know the last library I worked at, the library board did the review of the director because they were the hiring and firing power for the library director, which is not the case here. But you guys could go to the city manager if you had a problem with me. So don't, you could go to my boss. So don't forget that. So. Is also if we went to a conference together, that wouldn't be a meeting because, we're not talking business there. And it's also if we go to a party or social event. So, and I think when I first started, I think most of you guys did go to that one party that Joe had to introduce me. I think most of you were there, yeah. So that wouldn't have been a legal meeting because we weren't discussing the business. You guys were just introducing me to the community. And then there's more resources if you want to read up about the Brown Act. I think Allison does a little training with everybody. But I'm never sure if that's happened or not. So that's why I've added it into our training, just to make sure we go over the basics. But so far we've been pretty good and we haven't had any issues. And again, this is my second year doing this. So I think you guys are doing a great job. So, so MarinNet. So we are part of the MarinNet Consortium. And MarinNet, it was founded in 1991 and it was founded by the Marin County Free Library, Mill Valley, San Rafael, and Sausalito. And then slowly the other libraries started coming on board. 1997 was Belle Tib, 1998 was San Anselmo, 2001 was us, 2011 is Dominican, and then 2013 the College of Marin joined the MarinNet. And the MarinNet is the consortium of libraries. What we do together is that we share one ILS together. So that's why your library card is, when you get it here in Larkspur, you can go to any library in the county and check out material. And this just makes it easier because we share one ILS. And ILS is our integrated library system. And it's the system we use to keep track of our catalog, check in and out material, to bill. And MarinNet also, they're the ones that the staff that work in the MarinNet also are the ones that do all the billing, the emailing, and update our catalog because we use a layer over our catalog called BiblioCommons, which is a much more friendly and user-friendly interface versus the real catalog that comes with our software, which is not very forgiving. So the cost sharing is broken down between the member libraries. Our portion of the MarinNet budget is, for this fiscal year, will be 4.83%. And if you've seen our budget, you'll see what the big line items, it's like a really big number. So it's probably the lion's share of our budget goes to supporting MarinNet, but that does cover a lot of stuff. So what we get, I forgot to update the number. What we get for MarinNet is our integrated library system, which is Sierra. It also helps pay for Overdrive, which is our Libby and Overdrive platform for ebooks, e-audiobooks. E-magazines are now part of Overdrive. RB Digital is going away, and Overdrive did buy that, and they just bought Canopy as well. So we're still wondering if Canopy will be absorbed into the Overdrive platform. They help pay for a lot of the shared databases we use. and delivery. So there's a delivery company called Sprint that delivers materials to all the libraries. They do this on a daily basis. We get 4 days now instead of 5 because we're closed on Monday. The hope is that they're trying to expand our delivery, so we'll get delivery on Saturday. But this still all hinges on the county's delivery. The county has their own delivery contract, so if they switch the delivery contract, we might lose the Saturday delivery that hasn't started yet. So we're waiting to see. We also help pay for that staff. So their staff helps run all these things. Scenic is our internet that we get from the college, the state, and that helps increase our internet speed. They also sort of manage all of our work groups, and they coordinate delivery, the overdrive maintenance, and usually a lot of stuff that we can't handle, we just have the MarinNet do for us. And a lot of, like, if you guys haven't noticed in the catalog, if you look up a book now and it's a nonfiction, it says Larkspur nonfiction now, instead of just Larkspur. It actually tells you where they're at in the library. The MarinNet helped me get that set up in our collection. So if you're in the catalog, it now tells you that if a DVD is a DVD that's comedy, it'll say DVD comedy now. So it gives you a little more help when you're trying to track stuff down in material, but that was done with the help of the MarinNet staff. We are also part of 2 other consortiums. One is NorthNet, and this is like most of all the counties in Northern California. And we're also part of the North Bay Cooperative Library System, which I keep hearing is sort of defunct, but I have a board meeting where we were talking about stuff. And one of the lingering effects of this North Bay Cooperative Library System is a pension that they agreed to pay. And so the libraries that are all part of this consortium, or who are left of the consortium, are still on the hook for paying this pension. So, so these are the 2 other consortiums we're part of. We don't do much with them with shared services like Overdrive and RB Digital, because we do that within our own MarinNet consortium. So it's sort of like we're part of 3 consortiums altogether, but we're slowly, there's a lot of stuff that we do and learn from NorthNet and the Bay Area. I know the MarinNet has talked about leaving NorthNet, but we can't do that for 3 years because we're tied to our overdrive contracts with them. But there's another cooperative called the Peninsula Library System, which is most of the Bay Area is south of us. They're all in that consortium. So we were talking about moving our consortium to be more in line with the other Bay Area counties. So San Francisco, Oakland, Contra Costa, but that wouldn't happen for 3 years because we are tied to the NorthNet at the moment. But when we get to that point, I'll bring it back to you guys because you guys will need to say yay or nay to leaving these 2 other consortiums. But I think we're stuck in the North Bay one, but it used to include a lot of colleges, but a lot of those colleges have abandoned that system and are now part of the Peninsula Library Systems Consortium. So have I confused you guys?
Yes.
This is what I've discovered in here. When I first started, I was like, how many consortiums are we a part of? This is really different from where I came from in San Diego, because we only had one. And then we got tied into a second one when the housing market crashed because our cooperative almost fell apart. So the MarinNet, NorthNet, and the North Bay Cooperative are doing better than Southern California's cooperative. So they managed to survive. So the library budget and operations. So we do go over these during the year. So we look at the mid-year that happens in January, and then you guys help me with the new year, the new budget, which we start doing in March. So this upcoming fiscal year, we're compared to last year. So last year we had 2 frozen librarian positions and a library assistant position that was frozen. We had 1 librarian position defrosted, so we now can fill that position. And the other thing that's happening is that library assistant position now is going to be divided between the rec department and the library. So this person is full-time, but they'll be working between the 2 different divisions. We no longer have a 10% pay reduction that was eliminated back in May. So we're back to where we were before. But the library staff is now working at 40 hours a week for the full-time staff versus the 35 they were in 2021 and 2019. So they are now at full-time. Both Anna and Teresa are making living wages being full-time. So this was one thing I thought was really odd, that where I came from, if you were working 35 hours a week, that was considered 3/4 time. But here it was considered full time. So full time now, they all work 40 hours a week. I'm still not sure when the city's budget's fully going to recover, because we are still only going to, we have less operating days. So we're still just down to the 5 days a week, 30 hours per week that we're open to, that we will be open to the public. So once curbside ends, we'll be open 5 days if people come in, and we will be open till 6 o'clock once we resume full indoor service. So one of the big things we're still hoping to get is the Amazon locker, or the D-Tech locker. Everybody just calls it Amazon locker, but it's a D-Tech locker that's coming. And I'm still waiting for delivery date. And once I know that, we'll know when it can be installed. And then that will actually increase our hours of operation, that people can access material afterwards, after the library's closed. But we're going into 21, 22 with still just being 5 days of operation and 30 hours a week that will eventually be open to the public. So I'm going backwards. So our library partners. So we have 3 partners that help fund the library. The first one is the old, well, I don't want to say oldest, but I guess it reformed. So Barbara Friday is the current president of the library, president of Larkspur Library, and they do annually give $12,000 per year. And they help pay for all of our programming. They paid for the Zoom that we're using, and they've helped pay for a lot of stuff that we do, like some of the curbside bags, signage and things like that. They've helped pay for our bookmarks. A lot of that stuff that we have for branding comes from the funding from the Larkspur Library, Friends of the Larkspur Library. The Larkspur Library Foundation is one of our oldest foundations that we have. They annually give $10,000 a year. This past year, they gave more than that, and they are going to pay for the bulk and lion's share of the D-Tech locker that's coming. So they have it already earmarked in their foundation to pay for it, because the board keeps asking, when are we going to get it? Because they want to cut a check to pay for it, but we haven't gotten delivery date. So we're sort of sitting on that money. They do help pay for stuff that we get every year. The book sizzle, if you get that's paid for by the foundation. They've also helped pay for Beanstack, which is our summer reading software that we do all of our summer reading programming on. And occasionally they've helped to get speakers for us. The last one was a documentary on Mars that we got, and then we showed it to the public. The Larkspur Library, the Commons Foundation, is our youngest one. Oh, and I thought I updated the slide. So they actually this year have pledged $35,000 to help support, and they've helped this year. The last fiscal year helped us add a lot of new databases to the library's holdings. They've helped with helping beef up the DVD collection. So this year we were able to buy a lot of new DVDs with funding the Commons supported. They're also spearheading the funding for the new library construction, and they have now raised $1.3 million towards that effort, and the campaign is still ongoing, and they're currently in their silent campaign to help raise more money, because we're hoping that they're making good headway to get to that point to talk. And I know Joe, I don't think he's going to be with us tonight, but I think in the next one we'll get a little more updates from our partners. And they usually do come to the board meetings to give reports. The foundation, the Commons Foundation, the Larkspur Library Foundation does meet quarterly. So they don't meet as frequently as the Commons or the Friends. The Friends usually meet monthly during the year, but they do take the summer off. So June, July, and August, they take their summer break. But usually Barbara's really easy to find. Almost everybody's really easy to find. But our big thing is if someone asks you which one of these to give to, you got to ask them, well, what do you want to fund? If you want to fund programming, that's the Larkspur Library, Friends of the Larkspur Library. If they want to help build the building, that's the Commons Foundation. And if they're just looking to make sure that they're investing in the library for the future, that would be the Larkspur Library Foundation, because the foundation is building an endowment that will help us in rainy days. Like this year was a rainy day, and that's why they'll help pay for the D-Tech locker. But I think this might be one of the biggest questions that you get as being a board member. And I think, Armel, you get this a lot, that they're always asking, well, which one should I give to? Especially when the Commons Foundation started to, help support day-to-day activities. That was for them was off of what they normally did. But that Joe and the Commons Foundation stepped up when we took a major cut to our budget. And almost all of our foundations and support groups have all stepped up to help us get through this bad time. They've even pledged support to help get staff, and that was before we had some staff positions unfrozen. So they're willing to go to bat for us no matter what we need. But I think if you get any questions, it's going to be, which one should I give to? And those are usually the big three. The questions when I talk to people, those are the questions I always ask them. Do you want to support programming? Do you want to build a new library? Or you just want to make sure that the library has money in the future? So those are the three different ones to go to. So I get that's the end of it. You guys have questions or?
I have one question just based on one of the things you're saying is, with the Zoom meetings and giving kind of additional people access who can't get there in person, is there a thought to when we do start to get in person, having, a laptop or something where we do offer kind of a Zoom option?
Yeah, this is something I think it's been a hard part for a lot of libraries and even I think city council, because we know that some people are still worried about going to public places. And as you know, with this Delta variant going around, people are getting more and more concerned. But yeah, even as the MarinNet board, how do we create a hybrid model where we can still have, board members attend virtually and then still make sure that it's accessible to the public. Right now, the city council used to record and broadcast their meetings. We don't record normally our meetings when we were in person, and we don't film it either. So there's no way that we've been doing that. But I still think that if we do move back, that we would want to do some sort of hybrid model where we can make it accessible to the public. So we continue to do Zoom and have a way of having some, like even at the board, I know Jeff's really intended to come to today's meeting while he was on vacation, but the internet signal is so bad that he barely could get the email to me saying he couldn't attend today. So this gives a board members a little more freedom too. So if you are away, but you have good internet access, you can still attend a board meeting. But yeah, I think that it's a question that we're all still trying to struggle with is how do we create a hybrid meeting where you can be in person and virtual at the same time? And that's been the hard part, because even when they broadcast a live city council meeting on Marin TV, that's not an interactive thing. You can't just say, hey, I have a question, like you can do in a meeting like this. You can raise your hand if you're an audience member and be called upon, where if you're watching from home through the TV, you don't have that access. So it's something that everybody's been struggling with. And I know it came up with the MarinNet board too, because some of the directors like myself who we are short staffed and we don't have a lot of time to travel all the way half across the county. And even NorthNet, that's like out of the city. That's like, driving to miles and miles away to go to a meeting that ends up being there for half the day to drive all the way back. I can't really do that right now just because of the staffing in the library. We just want to make sure that it's accessible. So, and I'm glad the NorthNet one has been online, because that the first meeting I went to, I had to drive to, it was actually rather close, but they told me the last one was in Sacramento. And so the last one we went to was in Fairfield. So it wasn't that far away, but it took like an hour and a half to get there with the traffic. So
Franklin, thank you so much for putting this together. Super helpful on my very first meeting. Can you go all the way back up, if you don't mind, to the duties and responsibilities? One of the things that I'm just curious from a legit, well, there's a lot of builds on this. The PDF is a lot easier to scroll, I guess, to go back. The question is more around, like, what is the cadence in terms of, in your mind, like right now, obviously we have quite a procedural set of stuff to do right around approving the budget, going through the minutes, right? We've had this sort of like order of agenda items. What is the ability to engage on, the kind of like the thinking behind the programs, right? The goals, like what is the broader direction of the library, where we're going to be a year, 2 years, 3 years from now? How's kind of like this budget kind of leading to the things that we want to get done in the short term and the long term? Like what's the ability for the library, like what's the venue for this board to kind of engage in essentially some of the more creative thinking, or how you're looking at the future, and this is kind of building to that.
No, you're talking about strategic planning, which is what I would hopefully we would be doing by now. But when I was here, I've only been here like this, like I said, it's starting my second year here. So it really was. I didn't think this was going to happen. I didn't think that I would not have any staff when it was just me and Teresa. So there is some point where I really would like to get to strategic planning to really lay out what we're doing and how we're going to get there. And it's just, I think I myself have just been living day to day of trying to get through day-to-day operations. I know, like in November, I got scolded because I was doing too much of the frontline work. And I know even last time I talked to the city manager, he said your goal is to disengage from the day-to-day operations. So I shouldn't be working the reference desk. I shouldn't be. And it's funny because when I think about when he interviewed me, that was really, he did say that he didn't want me to be as hands-on as I have been. And I never intended to be this hands-on, but it's just, it happened when the pandemic started, we all got sent home. I was already short 2 librarians. And then when the budget cut happened, I lost Rob. And then when we reopened last June for our curbside, it was just me, the librarian, and my circulation person. And then we had 2 part-time staff that came back, and that was it. So I understand where you're coming. So this would be at some point in time when things sort of settle and I get more staff, that we would start working on a strategic plan to really start mapping out, like you said, programming. Because I'm also trying to get Teresa to rethink the way she does programming, because I've come from where it's more of an outcome-based programming. I also would like to go back to the Harwood Institute with really engaging the public on what kind of things they want to do, what they should expect, and what would they like to see. But I just haven't had a chance to really do that yet. I still want to make sure that I'm out in the community meeting people, and I haven't had a chance to do that. I had the one meeting that the Commons did before the pandemic, and then I still have, there are people that I finally met in person after talking to them a year on the phone that didn't look anything like I had imagined them to look like. So I really hope to get to a point where we are doing that strategic planning, that you guys are helping me shape, because that's what you guys are here for too. You're supposed to help me shape the library. Because I know one of the big projects that we still have to do is go back where I've slowly been trying to get through all the policies and really start revising them and updating them. And the biggest one we've done, well, we added a new one, which was the one we're going to talk about after this. And we reviewed the behavioral policy, and there was all sorts of holes in that one that I just wanted to make sure that we're doing that. So you guys are here to help me do that, but it's just getting to the point where I could say we're in normal operations, and we're not yet. We won't be in normal operations until there's a day where I don't have to worry about answering the phone to help someone curbside or answer a reference question. So we're slowly inching our way towards that. I mean, having the new librarian on board is going to help a lot. But I mean, I know one staff member keeps asking when we're going to open on Monday again. And we're just, right now, the city's budget doesn't, we're stuck with the hours and the days that we picked when we were in the midst of the pandemic. And I picked a Saturday for us to be open because I know that there are parents who are commuting who can't get here in time to get here during the weekday. So Saturday is the day that they would come in, because most people do have Saturday off. Not everybody. And I still understand there's still a lot of people in town who don't have Saturday off and we still can't get to the hours that we have. But right now, that's what we're limited to with our operating budget. So.
Hey, Franklin, one thing just to note from here is, we did go through this a bit during kind of the beginning of the pandemic, where we really pivoted to kind of more this digital model. And I talked about this in my letter on behalf of the trustees when I was chair at the end of last year to city council. We made this big pivot, and this was based on a lot of what Franklin was seeing kind of firsthand, and then feedback from the board and some of the work that Jonathan and Joe Jennings did. And so there's always going to be opportunities to do that. We've just lived in such a weird world since Franklin took over that hopefully we get some more of that. It's not just a pivot to try to give people access. It's more of a even more forward thinking.
Got it. That's super helpful. And Franklin, like just on the being so short staffed right now, like what do you feel like is the time distribution, like across just kind of keeping the lights on the day-to-day operation versus like these programs that you mentioned earlier, and like how much of it is the weight behind the new programs versus like just like very raw kind of basic day-to-day operation?
Most of even the programming, I would say, is just basic. I mean, we haven't had it. I mean, there's also too, because most directors don't do this kind of programming. I'm the one who runs all the garden talks on Saturday. I'm still doing, I do our author events. There's stuff that I'm doing that normally a director wouldn't be doing. I mean, it's just that's just because we wanted to make sure, because someone was like upset that we were doing programming, and it's like, programming is our bread and butter. This is how we, market to the world that that we're here and we're relevant. I mean, we can't just stop doing programming, because who would come here? Like, we would just disappear. We're not just a book holding spot. We're trying to be that community space for people, and trying to make sure that we're engaging the public, because that's also how we know what people want, because those public interactions is how we discover what people need and want. And that was why I was really hoping to get to a point where we can survey the community to find out what kind of programming, and especially parents, what kind of programming we would say, okay, we need to go to that. We need to be there. That's the kind of stuff I need to find out too, because that will help us reshape our programming from the traditional model that we had been. And we weren't even doing a traditional model here. We were doing a very outsourced model of our programming when I started here, which I've turned around, and now Teresa's doing story time. We're not paying somebody to come in and do story time like we were before. Because it should be done by our staff. That's how you build a relationship with the kids, is you do that by the librarian who's working here, not by somebody who's just here for an hour and then you don't see them until next week. This is why I was trying to get the staff to realize that there's an importance of doing the stuff, and we shouldn't be. And that was why I was sort of horrified to find out that we were paying, the Friends basically were just paying for story time. All the funding that they were giving us was going directly to pay for story time, which shouldn't be doing that. We have a children's librarian who went to school, who was in youth services before she worked here. She should be doing story time. So that was a big churn for us too. It's slow. It's going way slower than I thought it would be. But it's what happened because of the pandemic. And like I said, there's a point too where I would like to get us to, I know our ultimate goal is a new building, but I also would like to make sure that all the stuff that goes in that building and then the current building that we're doing and where we're going to move forward. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Franklin, I do hear a question, and I do think that the same way that there is a wish list for physical items and who would pay for them, and some type of a priority, it would be at some point in one of those meetings a good thing for us as a board to hear from you, your wish list in terms of programs. What I know, it's at the beginning you were very interested, and I'm sure you still are, in developing the teen program. And then if we could have just a little presentation that just tells us what you would envision and what would be those programs that you would start first. That would help us start thinking in that way. And I do understand that your time is limited and that you're extremely busy just running the day-to-day the library. But maybe a short presentation of what those programs you would like to develop in the future would give us, would start us thinking.
No, and I'm hoping to, once I get the new librarian on board, we'll see what they want to do, because the programming element is going to have to come from the librarians that are here, and having a new one and getting Teresa pulled out of circulation so she can actually focus again on library work will help us develop that. What we want to do and how we get there. So, because I can have a vision, but if I don't have the staff to support that vision, it's not going to go anywhere. So that's also too why I want to make sure that I get staff that, can help me move where we need to go. But yeah, I think maybe we should also too, it's like, what do you guys want to see? What are programming that I think we need to put that as a board agenda, just to do a brainstorming topic, just to get your guys' feedback on what we should do or what you think we should be doing. So
Yeah, I honestly, I would love to start that conversation, just really understanding what everyone sees as success, right? Like, what do we view like a year from now, 2 years from now? Like, what is the what is possible in terms of us achieving a certain progress in the way that the library is going to evolve into, and then like I see programs and everything else is like the way we get there, and obviously your judgment and how to achieve some of those is going to be key. But I'm just trying to kind of get like a point in time understanding of like where obviously this past year has been incredibly unique, and we can we can put that in an extraordinary bucket. But in the kind of like as we find our way back, and trying to lock resources, um, there's always a element of like how much funding do we have, how much resources do we have, right? And we can't divorce those things because they're very much interrelated. But I think there's some baseline appreciation of saying, look, if we can deploy the basic funding we know we're going to get, right, with the donation, with the funding that we have, where would that take us, right? What would be an ideal progress that we want to see? Just knowing that from you and the rest of board members would be very clarifying as a new board member, just so I can get connected with those, that vision that everyone has.
Yeah, so we can
One
add
of the
that
things we could probably do, Amir, is I was just going to say we could probably show him, Franklin, some of the programming numbers from before COVID, because to Franklin's point, it was our bread and butter, and there was a lot of programming going on. And a big part of that was all of the donations that the friends were getting, the money that they were raising, were allowing us to really continue more and more programming. So maybe we can look back at those, Franklin, from a couple of years ago.
Well, and I know the friends really do want to help support and continue to grow our programming. But the other thing is that we hit the limit. There's just, like I said, it's just me and Teresa. So I'm having to do stuff, because Teresa's doing, story time 2 times a week, plus the other additional program that we do for summer reading. I'm doing the Saturday programming, and then little sprinkles of other ones here and there. I took over the middle grade book club just so we could get that going again. So there's all this stuff that we want to get back to, but having the staff support. But yeah, the friends are still willing to pay for the programming. I think what Barbara didn't realize what exactly they were paying for. When I really broke down the numbers and showed what the friends were actually paying for. It's not what most friends groups traditionally pay for. And I know Barbara is really interested in having the friends actually support more of the the other stuff like the collection development to help pay for books and materials. So because that's also a traditional role that the friends have done and other libraries have done. And then Barbara's willing to do that as well. But we just need to give her a budget of how much we're going to ask them to help pay for certain parts of the collection. And I've been asking Teresa for that number for children's material. Because I think that when the Commons began to give money, it was different from their original mission. But it was what Barbara felt was more of the friends, what the Friends of the Library should be doing. So it's been a hard year in trying to get that. And I know the friends still want us to do even more programming that we're doing now to get us back to where we were before, because there was a lot of programming being done. But again, there was 3 librarians that were full-time plus the director that were here before I got here. I've only had 1 librarian since I started because 2 of them had left before I got here in January of 2020. So we were in this hiring phase before COVID hit. And then the person we had went to hire, they withdrew the offer because our budgets were frozen. So
I like to, Franklin, there's the kind of like the classic phrase, when you're in trouble, get out of trouble. It's like the maybe the best part to start before we even get to the stuff that we're talking about that are more around kind of goaling, strategic planning, and so on. It's just what's the plan to get out of trouble? Maybe it's the
well, no, and that's the same conversation we had a couple of weeks, last month at the MarinNet board meeting. They're like, they're talking about what would you do next? And it's like, we're still not even done with what's happening now. Like we want to get to, we're done with what happened and then we can look back and review it. But we're sort of still just in that midst of we're trying to get through the disaster that we're in. And we're managing, and it's like I told somebody else too, because most of the staff are getting to the point of burnout that, you know, Teresa finally took a time off. Anna has taken some time off. I haven't. Friday will be the first day I've taken off since November. I'm actually taking a day off and going to San Diego. It's been one of these times where I haven't had any vacation. And most of you know, I've been working from home even when I got sick. I was still working from home. So it's just been one of these weird years. And yeah, there's a point in me where we'll get back to where we can say, okay, now we're done with this disaster. Now we can start building for the future, because I'm also waiting for the city to fully recover, which might take a couple of years, because they're still not 100%. Are we out of the woods? Is the bad, because I think they built this next year's budget on a deficit, but they're hoping that it's going to get better like they did. That was the next thing I wanted to show you guys, was the actual board, the actual library budget that we had the completed one, which I found when I did the board report for you guys today. So, so this is our portion of the library budget that made it into the actual budget book. So it has the, you know, the division, libraries division, you know, we're part of community services, we're part of, we are the library and recreation. And our major goals for both divisions. But this is where I actually got to finally see our numbers. And I just about had a heart attack. So tomorrow I'm going to have a meeting with the city manager, because the finance director slashed my part-time budget from 44,000 to 10. So that would be most of our hourly staff would be let go. So I have to go and talk to the city manager tomorrow. So we are a little underfunded than we were in the past. So I think it was just, they were looking at the number that we had spent this last fiscal year, which was the 15,000. And then she just shrunk it down, not realizing we were that low because, one, I thought all the money was going to be moved around to make sure the full-time staff were full-time. But so that was something I discovered this on Saturday. So I have a meeting tomorrow with the city manager. Otherwise, it'll be a mid-year request to bump up our part-time budget, because my other division has a very healthy part-time staff budget, and they only have 2 part-time people. So it just was a shocker for me. So, but this is the completed budget. You guys helped me back in March when we started working on the part that they tell me I have control over is from contract services down, and the finance department does the first few lines of this. So yeah, I wasn't very happy on Saturday when I saw this. So
question for you, Franklin. The part-time went down 34K, but the salaries went up.
Yeah, the salaries went up because we've added another full-time staff, and now Anna and Teresa are working 40 hours a week. So this increased the amount of money they get every payday, as well as you know, having a full-time librarian. And I think half of this also is for Rob's old position, which was the library assistant. So that community service assistant budget has been split between both departments. So, because as you see, the recreation salaries also went up, but this covers that full-time person who's divided between the 2 divisions. So,
and do they share your salary equally across rec and library?
No, that's what I don't think. I think mine is fully just in the library, and that's how it's been. It's not split up between the 2 divisions, which you think it would be, but that was, they just left it in the library side of the budget. So. It's the same question I had, Jonathan, when I had asked them about, you know, how do I have someone work between 2 departments? Because right now we are hiring a part-time rec person who I thought would moonlight over here occasionally to help us when we're really, we need help. but then do a part of their time at recreation, because my rec supervisor is by himself, and it's starting to get super busy with everything reopening, and we're going to begin starting to rent facilities again.
Franklin, are there ways that we as the board can help or support you as you go to
no, well, you did that when it was what I was flustered about was that I realized that the finance director never went back over the personnel side of the budget with me, because where I've come from before, that was all on me. I would have seen everything, would have knew all these numbers, but I never had that second review of the budget. And I talked to her about that this morning, that she didn't have. She was like, I talked to you. I'm like, no, you didn't. We talked about this the year before. We didn't talk about it this year. But what got me was that the rec side stayed the same, but the library side got, slashed. So that's what I'm going to talk to the city manager about tomorrow. So.
Great.
But this is what you guys helped me. I show you guys this in March. So you guys saw this in March when we went through the line by line to talk about where we were moving stuff around to, because this was a year that we were supposed to have I'm used to calling it zero growth, but they call it something else here in Larkspur. I can't remember what the exact term is, but a zero growth budget is what I'm used to, and that's nothing changes. It just stays the same, which is what was happening at the last library I worked at. We pretty much had the same budget forever until we started asking for money. So,
all right.
Got it. So all the donations, so all the different private donations are going toward programming and other.
Yeah. So in our budget, that one here, it's the let me show you again, which is there's a project line in the city budget that is so normally the special projects here, the Friends of the Library give us $12,000 a year, and so it's put into this line item here. The one thing that was happening that wasn't being tracked was the money that the Larkspur Library Foundation was giving us. The Larkspur Library Foundation was paying for invoices directly. So it was bypassing the city's finance department. So a lot of city people thought, oh, the Larkspur Library Foundation is not giving money to the library anymore, but they were. It just wasn't being tracked in a way. So this year we started, this is why the reason it's like 17,000 from this last fiscal year is because the Friends and the Commons started to give money. And so that was one thing I was working on today was also, we now can track the different funding and spending from these support groups. So when I do a budget report, I can get a more detailed, and the city sees that, look, the Larkspur Library Foundation has given this much of money this year because they paid for this stuff. And it's tracked within the city finance system, where that it wasn't happening before. So everything that that the Friends, the Commons, or the Larkspur Library Foundation say they're going to pay for, the city pays for it, and then those foundations reimburse the city. And that was what I was working on today. Today, the invoices went out to all 3 support groups for them to pay back what we spent last fiscal year. And then they pledged to give a certain amount every year. So I know Larry for the Larkspur Library Foundation wants to pledge to give more money in the next fiscal year. The Commons, I'm not sure if they're going to come back and do another giving like they've done before this last fiscal year, just because it was they really wanted to help step up during the, they knew that we had a 33% budget cut last year. So they really wanted to make sure, but I'm not sure if they'll do that again. But we haven't spent all the money that the Commons had raised for us. So I think we've spent about half of it. So there's still money to be spent. So I'm going to have a meeting with Joe so we can go over what's left and what the Commons wants to do moving forward. So. But having it tracked this way too, it lets council know that the Larkspur Library Foundation had been giving money every year. That was one thing some of the council members didn't realize, that the Larkspur Library Foundation was still giving money annually to the library. It just wasn't being tracked in a way that anybody who didn't work outside the library would know. And that was one thing I really wanted to make sure that all of our support groups get the recognition they deserve, and that people know that, if they gave to somebody, this is where their money's going to. So now we put book plates in, that anything that the Larkspur Library Foundation has paid for. As you've seen on our marketing, the Friends logo is on almost everything because they've helped pay for Zoom. And the stuff that the Commons has helped support gets labels on it as well. All the DVDs of the and audiobooks that the Commons help pay for have a little Commons sticker on them so that you know who helped pay for that. So.
Thank you, Franklin. Do you want to go through the Chromebook and hotspot update?
Oh yeah, so let's that's the next item on the agenda. So really the big update to this is just the get to the screen. So when we have this patron who came down from Sonoma County, who was from Santa Rosa, who said, "Oh, I heard you guys have Chromebooks and hotspots to check out. I want to check one out." But then I realized, oh no, we need to put this in our policy. It was intended for Larkspur residents and for people who live around Larkspur. Greenbrae, half of Greenbrae does belong to the city of Larkspur, but the other half is county. Corte Madera and Kentfield and Ross are our biggest users of Kentfield and Ross. The bulk of the patrons I talk to come here before they go to Corte Madera, even though that the county lists Corte Madera as their home library, because those are county jurisdictions. They consider Larkspur to be their home library. So this is the addition that we've added to this. And so this is this is the only thing we've added to me. And then we did have you had to owe less than $10. Do you think that should be more? They should owe less than, how much money do you think we should have patrons from being blocked from using a hotspot or Chromebook?
What's the average outstanding balance?
Well, I think for one build item, it's maybe $20, $25, depending on the item. Since we don't have fines anymore, this really is what it would be. It would be for a build item. So if somebody was billed for something, and as some of you guys who do use Link Plus know, you can be billed $134 for a lost Link Plus item, even if the item is only worth $10. That's the standard fee for any Link Plus material lost, which usually incentivizes people to give this back to us in person, hand deliver. Because I have one lady, that's what she does every time she brings back a Link Plus book. She hand delivers it to us because she doesn't want to be billed for something that she's returned. So.
Do you know if anybody who's tried to borrow has had a balance of $10 or more?
Yeah, right now we do, because there are items that, because of the recent billing, there are items that are still being debated with between us and other libraries, because I think one lady I've been letting check out, and I've just been overriding it. It's she was sure that she'd returned the library book to Corte Madera, but Corte Madera says it doesn't have it. But I'm not sure how much of the Corte Madera staff's in the building, because I know for a while they weren't even allowed to be in the building. So I've just taken it at her word that she's returned it, and so I've just been overriding the block to let her check out.
But that is too late to check out hotspot, or is she? Was it? I'm getting confused. Is it just for hotspot, or is it for books?
Well, no, this was for both. So this one, it was a combined, because right now the hotspots don't check out without the Chromebook.
No, that's what I mean. I mean, it's just for Chromebook and hotspot. It's not regular books, regular material.
Well, no, I think that the MarinNet right now is, if you or build one item, that will block you from doing anything. You can't check out, can't put holds on material. And that's the MarinNet thing, because that was I think that was why the CERC working group was trying to figure out if they wanted to up the limit to 2 build items that would block people's cards. Because right now it's just 1 build item. Because I think San Rafael just went fine free as well last week, so they no longer will charge overdue charges. So I think that might leave only 2 libraries within the MarinNet system who are still charging for overdue charges. So
my opinion on this is that to borrow a Chromebook or a hotspot, those are pretty expensive items. So just to leave it at $10, because if we cannot trust somebody with a book that costs $5, why should we trust them? Should we trust them with a Chromebook? And we don't have that many, and we know that people are actually needing them. And if they owe $10, that means that they have 1 book outstanding. It doesn't take that long to just go home, find a book, and return it. So I don't have a problem with it the limit being low at $10. It shows that we mean people to be responsible for them.
I'm in agreement, particularly because we're getting good usage. To Armel's point, is got to be in good standing. So I'm with you, Armel. I think that makes sense to me.
I agree with that as well. It's a privilege to borrow a Chromebook and a Wi-Fi hotspot. So I think it's fine to leave it at $10.
Okay.
Great.
So I just need someone to make a motion to approve this, and then we can send it on to the city manager to stamp their approval.
I second.
All right, so moved.
Who made the motion to move it?
I'll make the motion to approve it, so that
Armel seconded
it.
I heard I moved. Okay. All right, I second.
Okay.
And you just need to do a vote now, Jonathan. So
yes, all those in favor of approving the Chromebook and hotspot policy.
Aye.
Okay. Franklin, do we have any of the support groups today?
So none of the support groups are here today. So I know Joe had a meeting conflict. The Friends are on vacation, and the foundation, their president is currently on vacation. So I didn't hear back from me because I only hear from Larry from the Larkspur Library Foundation. So even though I've talked to Lois, so nobody had any reports today for the board. So.
Okay, so on to future agenda items. I do want to revisit Amir's question, on some of the discussion we had. Is there an item that we should add as a future agenda item that could either be revisiting previous material that was insight into the strategy? Franklin, is that something that you have, that you can easily circulate that we could review? Just as a historical reference point?
I think so. I'd have to look, because I know some of the stuff was just a side meetings that we had with the Commons that you were part of, but not the full board. And I know there's stuff we can find. There's still stuff that I would like to get numbers on, but the MarinNet has made it so difficult to do. It's like drives me nuts, because they've recently decided to, as we start to slowly, me and the director from San Rafael slowly urge the other libraries to get, or at least the MarinNet to get on board with universal borrowing. They've changed some P types, so people who are considered out of county can now use library stuff like Canopy, Overdrive, which they were being blocked from before. That is something that's traditionally done at all California libraries. If you have a card from that library, you would have access to all their stuff. MarinNet is the outlier in that, because if you don't live inside Marin, you can't use different stuff. And we have this even within our own county. So as you guys as Larkspur residents can't always access something that the county owns, because you don't live in their jurisdiction, which to me is just, as Armel knows, drives me nuts. Because I found out when I first moved here that I couldn't access the county database, even though that I'm a county resident, because I live in Larkspur, which is part of Marin. So there's this big debate of universal borrowing that we've been having for the last year with MarinNet, and so this is slowly changing. We're trying to get them to do universal borrowing, but we're on a slow road to get there. It's just like RFID. They've been talking about RFID for the last 10 years, but I think there's stuff that we can put together to present to the board. Because I would just also like to, I always want to get your guys' feedback. So even finding out what kind of programming you would like to see in the future. So we can add that to the agenda. So
great, thank you. I think that'll be beneficial for all of us, not just Amir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a stat question for you. You could record for the next meeting or as a future agenda item. And that is, Franklin, what is the size of our total collection?
Right now it was a little about, no, I think that it was about 50,000, but maybe 46,000 now. So
do you know how it breaks down across kid, adult, and
yeah, what I'll do is I'll show you what I do for the state library. This is also where I discovered a horrible thing that we had been, for the last 20 years, we've been reporting the wrong numbers to the state library. So I found that out last year when I was working on the state report and just about had a heart attack. So I'll bring the collection report to you. So you can actually see a full breakdown of the entire collection as it was last October. We have to do our state report every year. And this used to be, in the good old days, would get us money from the state when the state would pay you for non-residents using your library, which would mean if someone from Corte Madera used our library, you would get some money from the state for that. Or if someone can't, but that programming and funding went away like maybe 8 years ago now. So they don't do that anymore. This is where I thought libraries would fall back into the city-state mentality, like they have back east, where if you don't live in town, you can't use their library. But right now, the one thing that created universal borrowing for California is that if you got money from the state of California, you were to lend to anybody who was a resident of California. And so that was why it was really odd when I got here that Marin is this outlier when it comes to that. They don't allow people to use stuff from other counties. So, and we have been called out for that at NorthNet meetings. So
yes, I do think that it would be interesting to see what our collection size is.
Mm-hmm.
But you just mentioned that you're in the process of thinning it, of weeding it.
Yeah. And this is in preparation of RFID because the tags cost, and you don't want to tag stuff that's never going to leave the library.
So what would be interesting is to have the numbers of the different divisions or categories, and also to have some type of vision of how do you thin it, just guidelines of and telling us which way you are bringing it. What are you? If we're talking about like a tree,
it's reviewing the collection development policy, and that was
right
on my list of things to do, because that was one thing I was asking Teresa is like, where are your guidelines for weeding? Where they don't seem to have any guidelines for weeding, and that's in that collection development policy. So I had started working on that a few months ago too. So.
Can we add one other thing? And I'm only going to add I don't think it'll take very long, but if we could just maybe walk Amir through the presentation that we had on kind of the new digital library and all of the, there's just that 1 or 2 slides that shows all of the different digital services that we offer, which I just think would be interesting for him to see that slide particularly. But I think the presentation is like 7 slides or so. Do you mind doing that?
No, that we can go over that too. I'll add that too.
Thank you.
I have one more thing since we're in stats. I'd love to review and also be able to have Amir see what is the demographic breakdown of the library patronage of everybody that's here. Because with that, then we start to get these reference points of how does the community that we're serving break down? What is the breakdown of the resources that we have? And then on a monthly basis, we're already seeing the activity, but we don't have that perspective yet. Is it 5% or is it 40% of the total available things? And then see how that's changing, over time. Do we have those
the only stats that we can get on the demographic breakdown is from the census. What frustrates me with MarinNet, because we only have 2 patron types, adult and children. There's no teen. Teen are dumped into children's. So there's no way for us to figure out who actually is a teenager who has a library card in the library. And what they do is they have some process of, they can figure out when a teen becomes an adult. So they put this thing in the patron record saying you need to confirm their identity when they turn 18. But it drives me nuts because I've always worked in libraries where we had a P type, which is a patron type in the system, that said this person's a kid, this person's a teenager, this person's an adult. And they haven't done that here in MarinNet. So they just have 2 different types, children and adult. So they don't break it down into the 3rd category, because I really would like to know how many teens have a library card with us, so we could really get a good view of who has them, because that would give us a better idea of how many teens have library cards. I mean, I know we can figure out how many kids, but they're clumped together in one big giant thing. There's no way for me to determine who are the teenagers and who are the real kids in that P type. That's a report we can't get because they didn't develop that P type. I brought this up again last month when they were talking about the changing the out of area person. Like, why don't we still don't have a teen type? Why can't we get a teen patron type so we can see how many teen patrons we have in our full like the full Marin net would be nice to see too. And they just don't have that number. We can't pull that from something. So I'll ask Dan again at MarinNet if there's a way to find out who is the teenager in our system versus who's just considered a kid. So,
well, other than the census, I think it would be interesting to discuss some ideas on how could we gain that insight, because it seems very actionable and interesting, you know, to understanding that community. Franklin, how many total library cards or patrons do we have?
No, that's the other number. I'll have to pull that number again for you, because we've also had a very, like, at the very beginning when I started here, I was marketing our library card. That was one of the things that we were doing, is like to get a library card, and we sort of stopped doing that. But we also haven't had like when I've had the staff run the report of library card holders, new card holders that have email addresses to give to our support groups. The last time we ran the report, we had like 4 new library cards. And it's like, it's very odd to me. Like, you'd think more people would be getting a card, but I think people who want to come and get a card in person haven't been doing that. And the people who are not tech savvy don't know that they could do that at home from their computer versus the people who did. So I know a lot of new people have gotten, but we've had our number of new users since the pandemic has has slowed. So we don't have any new users yet in the system. I've met a couple of people who, you know, got their cards online and came in and got cards in person. But I think the families, now that we're back open to the public, are starting to come in again to get cards. Because I had a mom who came in on last Thursday and registered herself and her 2 kids. So that was 3 new cards. So it's a slow thing that you think would have been happening, but we stopped doing that. We were paying for an ad on Twitter to get it in front of people's eyeballs in Marin that you could get a Larkspur library card. But we stopped doing that, and then because then we were focusing on just getting our digital resources used. But
okay, thank you. Any other future agenda item requests?
I think that's good for me.
Yep. Amir, thank you for great questions and active participation. It's great. As for our next meeting date, I believe we had previously looked further into the future, and Monday, August 9th was a date for our 6:15.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still good for everybody?
We will make it work.
Okay.
So August 9th?
Yep. Monday, August 9th.
That's great.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, works for me.
Okay, it works for me. So that we'll call that the date. Ready to adjourn the meeting? Motion, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Seconded.
Second.
We're officially adjourned.
who seconded the meeting? Is that you, Jonathan, or
Sure.
Andy? Okay.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Amir, welcome.
Thank you. Great.
Welcome, Amir.
Appreciate it. Thanks
All
for
right.
the welcome. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Okay. Ciao.